Hi, my name is Charles Borges de Oliveira. In this video, we'll show how Rough-It can be used on custom hand lettering, as well as being used on a logo. So let's begin. Okay, in this video, we'll be showing how to use Rough-It 2 actions on custom hand lettering. We'll cover what the Rough-It 2 action does compared to the regular Rough-It actions. When a Rough-It 2 action is played, you'll notice white and black bars running throughout the object. Rough-It will only apply a textured edge to anywhere where there's white. This is a nice feature that mimics textured paper. So let's begin and select an action from Rough-It 2. For this demonstration, we'll be using the first action. Let's go ahead and select our text here, and I'm going to go ahead and run the action, and we'll let Rough-It do its course here. Okay, so it's asking us to keep it at default in image trace and then press the trace button. Next, click the play button in the actions panel to continue. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll go ahead and click trace, and I'm going to press play in the actions panel. Okay, so now we've got a nice textured edge going on. And I'm going to go ahead and run a couple of different actions on this piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and run the detailer action. I'll go ahead and press play. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and run the smoother action. So go ahead and press play on that. And there we go. So now we've got a nice textured edge on our letters here. Okay, in this video, we'll show how to use Rough-It's actions in a typical graphic design setting. We will also show how to use one of the 12 Rough-It texture swatches. So let's begin. I've got my design pulled up here, and I'm going to go ahead and select the text. And you'll notice that the text is on its own separate layer. I've got everything else locked except for the layer I want to run the Rough-It action on. You'll also notice that it has a drop shadow. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the drop shadow off, and I'll explain why here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the background because we don't need it for this. Okay, so I've got my text, and the reason why I turned off the drop shadow is because I want an accurate reading of the true height of the letters. Okay, so the height is 1.5424, and the way Rough-It works is the smaller your text or object, the greater the effect will be, and the larger your text or object, the smaller the effect will be. In this case, I want a real chopped edge to these letters, so I'm going to go ahead and scale this down to 0.55. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this tiki sun here. I'm going to paste it 2 more times. And the reason why I do that is when I run a Rough-It action, I like to run it on a couple copies of whatever I'm working on. That allows me to go ahead and pick and choose which letters I like the best. So I'm going to go ahead and copy, paste in front, and I'll move it up 1, and then I'm going to do it again. Okay, so now I've got 3 versions here, and I'm going to go ahead and select all the text, and we'll be using Rough-It. I'm going to be using Rough-It 3 for this. So I'm going to go ahead and press play in the actions panel. Okay, so now it's asking us to change it to Rough-It 3 in the image trace preset. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'll go ahead and press play. Okay, now for the fun part, we get to choose which letters we want to keep. So I'm going to go ahead and select all this and ungroup it. And we'll zoom in on this. And I like how this T here looks, especially with these little chopped edges right there. And I also like the way the IKI here turned out. So I'm going to go ahead and select this and delete it. And I'll grab my T here. I'm just going to move it up 1. And now we can look at our dots here over our I. And I really like how this one turned out. Also, I like this one too. I think I'm going to use this one. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I'll select this and I'll just move it up 2. Okay, and now we'll move on to the S. Really like how this S turned out here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And we'll just move this one up. Okay, now looking at this, I really like how this UN looks here, so I'm going to go ahead and just delete this. I'll select the UN here, and I'm just going to go ahead and move it up. And now I've got my finished word here. I'm just going to go ahead and delete these. And now here, this is really important. The original text, the coordinates were down over here, so I'm going to have to select this and just move it down too. Okay, that puts it back where it originally was. And now we can go ahead and rescale it back to its original size, which was 1.5424. Okay, so now we can go ahead and show our background here. And I'm going to go ahead and run a couple different actions on this. I'm going to go ahead and run a smoother action. That just helps smooth out the rough edges. So I'm going to go ahead and press play on that. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a fill to this. So I select the fill action. I'm going to press play. And it's asking us to pick a swatch and press play in the actions panel. So let's go ahead and do that. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select this one. I just want a nice little speckle, kind of a sandy beach type look. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and press play. Okay, so now we can just go ahead and add our swatch color to it. And I'm just going to go ahead and put the drop shadow back, and I'll give it a little pop here. And I can turn on my highlight. And there we go. Now we've got the finished design. Has a nice kind of wooden chop look, which is what I was going for. Okay, in this video, we'll be showing how to use rough its actions in a graphic design setting. I've gone ahead and created this logo, and I'm going to use some of the rough it actions to create a weathered letter style here. And for the sake of time, I've gone ahead and I ran one of the actions on the panel here. So I'm going to go ahead and select the text, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it, and I'm going to paste it into its own layer. Okay, so now we can just hide the other two logos here. And I'm going to change it to black, and I'm going to run rough at 6. So I'll go ahead and press play in the actions panel, and we'll let rough it do its course here. Okay, so a dialog box comes up and it's asking us to change the preset in image trace to rough at 3. So let's go ahead and do that. So in the image trace window here, I'm going to set the preset to rough at 3. And now we'll just go ahead and press play in the actions panel. Okay, so now this is a good time to show some of the other actions in rough it. So I scroll down and you'll notice there's detailer 2. So I'm going to go ahead and run that action. Okay, I'm also going to run the smoother action. So I'll go ahead and press play. And now we can change our text to white. And I'll go ahead and show how it looks on the logo here. And you can see I was going for a weathered letter style, and the actions produce what I was looking for. So now we can go ahead and compare the two. We've got the clean version, and we also have the weathered look. So there you go, a logo design using the rough it actions. Well, that concludes this video on rough it. Be sure to check out our next video on tips and troubleshooting.